Hey guys, so I'm so excited for this video. This is my first Ask Me Anything and I'm really excited to answer all the questions that you guys submitted. Calls on Instagram, calls on Twitter, through email, on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for sending in all your questions. I'm actually gonna be able to answer at least one question from everybody who sent one, at least one. I had somebody who sent like a huge amount of questions, which are actually super interesting. So they're gonna be right at the end, including some questions for my boyfriend Jose, who is the person who makes everything happen behind the scenes. All right, so the first question, are you self-taught or did you go to school? Mixture, mostly self-taught, which is insane because it was so hard at first. The amount of tutorials, the amount of videos, the amount of photos that were available online at the time when I first started were very minimum or they were awful. There was a lot of mistakes. I actually did not take any classes until I started college, and even then, by the time I took those classes, I kind of already knew a lot of the skills that they were teaching me. I originally went to school for textile design, but fashion design classes were included as part of my program, so I did have to take those introductory sewing classes. And I was already like BFFs with all the teachers because I'm just like, yeah, here's a homework, here's a homework. It wasn't even a big deal at that point because I'd been sewing for years. Meanwhile, I'm watching other people like struggle with the machine, and that sucked to watch, but it was cool because the teacher allowed me to go and teach people things in the class, which was great. Do you still dabble a little with Lolita and J fashion? So the whole reason I got into sewing was because of Gothic Lolita. If you know anything about Japanese street style, this is the beautiful, beautiful, you know, fluttery princess outfits that you see in images. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys a magazine from that. This is was my initial inspiration. Everyone is wearing petticoats, everyone is dressed up in frills and bows and lace and the whole nine. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to dress like that. I wanted to hang out with these people. I wanted to go and hang out with friends here who were dressed like that. So that's actually what got me started into sewing, is that where am I gonna find these clothes? How are these clothes even gonna fit me? So found a magazine, and actually that's exactly how I got into sewing. So for this question specifically, do I still dress up that way? I don't, unfortunately, because I kind of outgrew it in a lot of ways. I moved to San Francisco and my big group of friends down where I lived previously in San Diego. It was hard without them, you know, and it was hard being up here by myself without them. So I stopped dressing that way, which sucks because I still have a lot of the dresses. I'll show you guys one of those dresses. So I still have these guys in my closet. I'm actually going to be selling some of them, so if you're interested in Gothic Lolita and Lolita in general, I'll probably be posting a couple of them on Instagram if you guys want to at least see a picture too. What do you love the most about vintage? With all my interest in Gothic Lolita, it's all a bunch of stuff that is based on older fashion and older culture. So for me, the jump to vintage was super easy, and what I loved the most about it was the poofy dresses. That's what got me into it, no joke. I want to wear a poofy dress. Where can I get a poofy dress? Now this is a grown-up version of a poofy dress. Let's wear that. How did you get into pinup and vintage and pinup sewing? So same thing, but now with the pinup stuff specifically, it's like taking it to a modern new level, which I kind of like, even though it's old. It makes sense. It makes sense, I promise. What's your most used pattern? I actually don't have one. Yes and no. So my most used pattern is probably Gertie's pencil skirt, just because it's basic and it's straightforward, and I don't have a need for a pencil skirt. But for everything else, I can't say I've made something more than twice. And even the things that I've made 2 times, like for example, like this top, it's more for practical sake rather than, oh, I really love this skirt pattern, so I'm just gonna keep doing it. I very rarely do that. What's the most helpful tip or hack you have for sewing? The pre-production. Term I learned from Jose, who does the videos. The pre-production is super important, and people rush it like crazy because everyone wants to just jump into buying the fabric, or they just want to cut into it already, or they just want to sew it, they want to see it done. And so a lot of the stuff that goes beforehand gets completely skipped, completely. So for example, I'm about to start a new dress right now. Actually, from where I'm sitting, I can see the pattern. But you know, first thing I did was I opened up the envelope, and I'm like, okay, the back of the envelope tells me I need a zipper, and it tells me that I need lining fabric or whatever. I'm going to open up the pattern and actually look at the directions themselves, look at the pictures themselves, look at the steps themselves, and think to like, okay, cool. It's telling me by modern sewing standards I need a zipper and I need this lining, but I can see here that I want to incorporate this vintage sewing technique and I want to incorporate this technique. What more tools and what more skills do I need to learn in order to do this? And no joke, I do generally make it a point to research every step or every new step that I'm going to take with this project, right? So for example, okay, cool, there's nothing in there about a V-neck stabilizer, or because it's probably going to stretch, so I need to go out of my way and find what I'm going to use to stabilize this, and I'm going to have to look up the vintage technique to incorporate that into directions, which are not listed in directions, but they're super important and they pay off in the long run. Do all your pre-production work, so important. What do you look for to decide if a fabric will make a good vintage style dress or not? It's a little bit tricky, just because, you know, let's say if you're buying fabric online or you're going into the store, you may or may not know what that fabric is, but you have to think of how that fabric behaves, right? You need to hold it, you need to drape it, you need to crinkle it up and see if it stays super wrinkly, if it, you know, how is it going to move? And that is my biggest way that I decide whether or not it'll work. There's definitely been projects where I use a modern fabric that was not available, you know, back when this pattern was available. So, you know, you have to think about that, and you also have to think of how it feels against your skin. You really have to kind of analyze it. It's more than just, oh, the print is pretty. The print's always pretty, no joke. But does it actually behave like you want that garment to behave? What is your favorite fabric to work with and why? I have a love-hate relationship with crepe, but it's my favorite to work with because it's a little bit, like, depending on the weight of it, it can be thick or thin, and it's got this beautiful texture in it, and it feels luxurious, and it drapes luxurious. Problem is that because I do mostly vintage style sewing, 99% of it, I don't have an overlock machine. I don't have a zerger. So all of that I have to do by hand. Even my sewing machines, even though they have a zigzag, you know, sort of feature, I can't do that on crepe very easily. It kind of fucks it up and it unravels it a lot. So I do that by hand. And so therefore, as much as I love crepe fabrics, they get to me, man, they get to me. How did the vintage sewer deal with fabrics running or bleeding of colors and shrinking of fabrics like cotton? I actually had to look this up because I did not know. But thankfully, I didn't even have to go online. I'll show you guys something that I bought in Vegas. It's actually in one of my old haul videos. So I have the Simplified System of Sewing and Styling, published in 1948, and it is very, very old. So actually I was so happy to know that I actually could look up an actual resource of the time. So all right, I'm just gonna go ahead and read the paragraph. It's very small, but I love the sass. I love the attitude in it. The dyes of most cottons and linens are color fast. Therefore, no attempt need be made to set the dye. If the water becomes discolored from excess dye that may cling to the fibers of the fabric, rinse the fabric in a few changes of water until the last rinsing water is clear. You need have no fear of the colors running. Discard any idea you may have that salt or vinegar added to the water will set the dye. As a textile designer, as someone who actually went to school for dye and, you know, printing and all that sort of stuff, nowadays you don't really have to worry about it, besides, yeah, like, so you buy a red shirt or something and that's there's a lot of excess in there. But in terms of bleeding, it's very rare in modern fabrics. Back then though, yeah, they're telling you not to worry about it. It's probably not as big of a deal as you might be worried about, but I like the attitude. What are the tips in regards to hemming for new seamstresses? Ooh, I'm sad that I'm answering this question now because I just did an Instagram story tutorial about this and how I hand hem, you know, items. Definitely, if you're not following me on Instagram, check out my accounts because I'm kind of doing these daily sort of tutorials on there now, or at least a few times a week anyway. And so these kind of little tiny techniques will be in there. I may do a full video on there. If you guys really want to see it, just let me know in the comments. All right, actually that's the next question. Will you be doing more in-depth tutorials in the future? Do you guys want to see tutorials? Now the thing is, with tutorials, I'm on the fence about them, like straight tutorials, because the thing is that I want to speak with people who have been sewing for a little while. That's a different conversation than a regular basic tutorial, right? You know, oh, this is how you thread the machine, this is how you do a straight stitch. Those sort of tutorials, they're out there, they've been done, they've been beaten with the pole. The tutorials that I would want to do for you guys would be how to do a French seam, right? How to do a bound buttonhole, how to hand hem, you know, a dress or a skirt or whatever. So they're kind of a little bit, not advanced, but just techniques of vintage sewing. And those would be the tutorials that I would want to do, but I'm not sure, you know, if that's something you guys want to see. So again, leave the comments down below if that's something that you would want to see or what sort of vintage techniques you would want to see in tutorial. Any tips for really full-busted ladies in regards to full bust adjustments? This one is difficult because I've had to do full bust adjustments on everything and I did not know what the hell I was doing for a really long time. So many garments that I made when I was very new to sewing were not, you know, I didn't know that most patterns were for a B cup until, you know, I was well sewing for years. Always make a muslin. You already know the changes that need to be made. You already know that when you do a certain dart, it's going to be huge. How can you need to look up techniques on how to minimize that dart being insane. So for example, I made a vintage slip a little while ago. Actually, it was probably when I started to really take you know, doing stuff for the website very seriously, really nice pictures, all that stuff. But anyway, I had to do a full bust adjustment on this slip, and when I did the full bust adjustment, the dart was insane to where the point where the slip was like pointy 80s Madonna style bra top. What I ended up having to do is kind of just do some research, like, okay, how can I minimize that? How can I actually make that work for me? Because this is not something that most people know to look for. So what I ended up doing was removing the dart and instead doing gathers, because that looked more natural and it looked more time specific. And yes, it changed from a dart to a gather, which is different than the original design, but you have to be okay with making those changes. You know, you have to like realize that as beautiful as that piece looks with a dart, that's unrealistic for you or for your size, and that's okay. Let's make it work. That's how I approach a lot of my full bust adjustments, stuff that I have to do. It's like, it might have to look a little bit different, and that's fine. It's still 99% there though. It's fine. Next question is, how do you keep your hair so sassy? I actually brought some stuff so you guys can see the tools that I use. It's very simple for me what I use. My products are pretty minimal for my hair. To set my hair, I use Lotta Body, which is tried and true in the vintage pinup culture. This specific one, coconut and shea oils, is new. I don't know when they changed the bottle or when they introduced this specific product, but it smells amazing. This one you don't need to mix with water like you do with the concentrate, which is kind of nice. I never could quite get a proportion of water to product properly, so this I don't have to do that with. And so I use that guy. Hairspray, because the hairspray is vital, is I use a Sebastian Reshaper hairspray. It's expensive, I'm not gonna lie. It's like 18, 20 bucks, something like that. But this particular bottle will last me 2 to 3 months, because you have to imagine I only really nail it with a hairspray on the first day, and then the rest of the time is just like a quick touch up. I wash my hair probably every 3 days, 4 days, depending on what time of day and if I've gone to the gym or not. Other thing is just comb and my paddle brush-ish. This one needs to be replaced. But that's all, that's literally all I use besides like my rollers. It takes a lot of time. And last week I did not do my hair for all week. And it made me depressed, I'm not gonna lie. So it's worth it for me to do it and to spend the time doing it. So here we have the big chunk of questions. They're all great questions. Okay, and what era is your favorite? Late 40s to mid 50s. Very, very specific. But I do like things about different decades. The only thing is, it's like with my body shape, I can't rock them, right? It's like, as much as I think like the 20s were amazing, I can't wear those drop-waisted dresses. I can't. I look like a potato sack. I've done it. It's awful. And I look at my old pictures and I'm just like, no, sorry girl. Who is your style icon? This is a tough question because there's so many amazing style icons out there. Right now I'm really into exploring like Mexican cinema, you know, kind of style icons, and it's interesting because it's so different than, I don't know, than saying, oh, I really like Kim Kardashian or something. You know, like, do you have a favorite music artist from the 40s through the 60s? Not really, but I'd say I really like Frank Sinatra, though. I mean, I just kind of like that sort of music. It's mellow. I like that. But in general, for the most part, my music is usually hipster music, and my boyfriend hates that. Do you do extensive research on garment eras, or do you just follow the patterns that you like? I just follow the patterns that I like. I have so many patterns that at this point it's just like, this seems pretty right now, this seems pretty right now. But even more so than just going through the patterns, I make specific patterns for specific events. So Thanksgiving coming up, or holiday party coming up, or whatever, like I think about it in that way. I'm like, okay, what do I want to wear there, and what's gonna be a wow piece for me wearing it there? So that's usually what makes me decide to make one piece versus another. If you have a favorite classic movie, what is it, and does that movie affect your sense of style or music? I do not. Actually, I haven't, I don't really have time to watch movies, which is very sad because, oh, I have a friend here visiting. Come here. Oi! This is my cat Albondiga, and she hates me when I pick her up, so I'm just gonna stop. Okay, so what was the question? Okay, classic movie? No, yeah, I don't have time. I don't have time. As much as I would like to go through my entire Netflix queue, I don't have time, and that sucks. Do you like or know how to dance swing music and rock and roll? I do not. I think it would be fun to learn, but again, I don't have time. Who is your modern style inspiration who dresses vintage? Gertie? Oh, you're so cute. Okay, I really like Miss Victory Violet, just because I think she's beautiful, and of course Dita, because who doesn't love Dita? Her whole life philosophy is amazing, and then Gertie is fun. Like I think it would be cool to meet her and to like have a beer. When dabbling into vintage style, what did you find the most challenging? Hairstyling, clothing, expenses, foundation, garments, stockings, that sort of thing. The most challenging, to be honest, is probably making it consistent, actually. So the hair, again, okay, I'm tired. Do I really want to re-roll my hair right now? Okay, fine. Or no, I can't. And then my hair will get fucked up. With all of it, right? How can I continue to make, you know, great pieces, and how do I really have time to go look for the stockings and that sort of thing? That's actually probably the hardest part for me. It's like, as much as I want to be like totally in it, it's expensive, you know? It's all of that, it's all expensive. So that's actually the most challenging part. I want the stockings, but I have to wait till I get paid. But you know, like I have to wait for the shipping, and are they gonna be here on time? Fuck it, whatever, I can use the same tights. As a person who does vintage styling, how do you cope with odd stares or weird questions? This is actually something that I became very good at when I started getting into like Lolita and Japanese street styles, because it's so much more out there than vintage, right? So with Lolita, it was like straight frills and bows everywhere. Insane amount of stares, to the point to where after a while you kind of become numb to it. You don't even notice. And you know, walking around with a friend who might not be dressed up that way, they're feeling more uncomfortable than me, right? Like I remember my sister being like, are you really gonna go out wearing that? It's like, yeah, yeah, I am. Ugh, can you please not wear that? And so that sort of thing back when I was so young got me so used to it now that when I walk around with it, does not faze me at all. I don't even notice it anymore. And if anything, living in San Francisco specifically, I live very close to the Castro, so everyone there is like, yes, queen. And I'm like, yes, queen. So it's fun. How do you stay body positive? How do you deal with online bullying? I can be fortunate enough to say I've not experienced that at all, but that's what the block feature is for. I'll take a page out of RuPaul's book. If they're not paying my bills, I ain't gonna pay them bitches no mind. So it's fine, you know? Like, it's not a big deal. The problem that I do have with just general bullying in general though, is that I know that it can stick, right? So I know if I read it and I'm like, block, but like it sticks, you know? Like you keep thinking about it, and that sort of kind of mental mind game, that's something that I know I have to practice when those online bullying stuff happens, because I know it's going to happen eventually. I'm actually surprised it hasn't already. Hopefully not. For the last questions that I have 3 more questions that we're going to answer, but I'm going to be bringing in Jose, who is going to be answering these questions because they involve him. So this is Jose.
Hi
He's
guys.
He's my boyfriend of 3 years, and to people who ask me, do I have a boyfriend? I do have a boyfriend. I'm very happy. So he's going to be answering the next few questions because, I mean, these ones he can address better than I could. So here we go.
Okay, so does your significant other appreciate the vintage style as well? Yes and no. I appreciate it on her. But me personally, I'm super not into it. Like, I do not see myself wearing anything like that. We've actually tried to go to like, how do you call those things where like people dresses up as a certain era, and it's very uncomfortable to me. Like, I do not even like to like dress up for Halloween even. So I like that she does. I think she looks beautiful in it. But me personally, not too much into it. What does your significant other like the most about your vintage style? I think you know, when you were talking about people staring, I think maybe because we live in San Francisco and everyone's super open-minded, that they stare and it's almost like flattering. And to know that I have a beautiful girlfriend, you know, it's flattering, because people do look, and even on the street they tell you, oh, that's a pretty dress, oh, that's, you know, and I'm the man next to her, and that's cool. So that's what I like the most about her vintage style. What preparations do you make before embarking on YouTube, on Instagram, and blogging? Examples like camera equipment, setting up the blog site, planning and editing, balancing work and schedule. So the YouTube channel was my idea.
I know.
And I pushed really hard for it because I went to film school. I'm a very visual person, and I thought that it was a good idea. I also think that seamstresses are visual people too, and it was easier for you to show your craft in a visual way rather than the blog. Sometimes it's hard to read, especially with someone like me, because I don't know how to sew. And every time I used to read her blog, and there were instructions that I couldn't even understand. So we did the YouTube channel. There was a lot of thought put into it. It took us a while to embark ourselves in the video world. and I think the first thing we did is like research the camera. We used a Canon T5i, which came with 2 lenses, one long lens and one wide, and they're both zoom lenses. And obviously, like, they're the cheap ones. Like, there's the ones that came with the package. So it's not the best equipment, but it's also not amateur equipment either. The idea for us at the time was to have the best equipment for the least amount of money, because we were like kind of broke when we bought this stuff. And yeah, so for like, it was like, I think $800, $900. We bought the T5i, came with 2 lenses, and I think that was perfect for the time. So besides the camera, also I use Final Cut to edit, and that's it. We also take photos for Instagram with our camera. So it goes from the camera to Photoshop to Dropbox to Instagram. It just looks more professional that way. Yeah. No, yeah, that's all the preparations we did.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's probably gonna run really long. I mean, after you edit it, I have no idea. Oops, sorry guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video though. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll go ahead and answer them there. I'm not sure if we're gonna do another Ask Me Anything. We'll see how this one goes. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you haven't given it a thumbs up, please give it a thumbs up. It's a passion project that's turned into a lot of work, but I really enjoy doing this. So I definitely want to hear from you guys. So thanks again for watching this video and see you next time.